Hi guys, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about mythology with myself, Fraser, Jamie,
Hello.
Aaron,
Hello.
Fionn,
Hey,
and Andrea.
Hello.
So Jamie's going to kick us off by talking about Greek mythology. Take it
Go,
away.
Jamie.
Okay, so in Greek mythology, there's 12 major gods, and I'm going to talk through a few of them. There's the big boy Zeus and his two brothers, Hades and Poseidon. Zeus, the god of the sky, he had many, many wives. But the one that's important is Hera, and she's the goddess of mothers and families. Beautiful stuff.
aw,
He is the god of the sky and lightning bolts and the thunder. And basically, he's not very nice to his wife. That's
why?
like the basic
Wait,
thing.
what do you mean?
Well, Fionn, let me talk to you about that.
I
Many,
believe he wasn't very faithful.
No, not at all.
that is more of it. His brothers, well, they're quite the opposite, really. Poseidon had one wife that he loved dearly, and Hades, well, he's a bit of a loner and couldn't really get any wives. In fact, he had to
He's the
resort.
guy in the underworld.
Yeah,
is well
didn't
done.
he kidnap his niece?
He
Is
did.
he really
yeah.
mean?
resort to kidnapping to get his wife. And that really
Right.
shows the
That's
type
kinda
of person
sad.
he is.
It was Proserpina, was it not?
It was,
Yes.
yes. With her mother,
Proserpina.
Demeter. Her mother, Demeter. Who
And
Demeter,
was-
who's that?
Demeter.
And is Hades the god of the underworld, or is that in Roman mythology?
That's in both
Mhm.
mythologies.
is this in both? Yes,
Oh.
thank you, Aaron. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
So,
wait. So which mythology is the whole Helen of Troy thing from?
that's Roman.
it
Mainly
ends
Rome.
on
Wasn't
the
like Homer
foundation
Greek?
of Rome.
I'm pretty sure Homer was Greek.
She was. In
So-
fact, her husband was Spartan, and that's what the entire Greeks came together to go over to somewhere in Africa, Turkey place, where Troy is believed to be, and they
No, it actually was because they excavated it and they found a big like city that had been buried.
yes, that they believed to be Troy.
Yes.
Anyway, and after that, some of the people from Troy sailed across the sea to Italy, where
Where the Romans lived.
the Romans lived, and where they
Going to
believed,
live.
and that's where many historians believe, if the legend of Troy is to be true, that is where the formation of Rome came about.
And obviously, we can't talk about the Troy without mentioning Hercules.
Really? Wait, what's the relation
That's a
between
bit
the
of a
two?
leap there, but yeah, Hercules.
I got that. I got that completely wrong.
Let's talk about Hercules.
Yeah,
I
this is-
As everyone knows,
I meant to say Achilles.
oh,
yes.
Achilles, very
He
important.
wasn't very
Achilles.
nice though. He like dragged your man, around the city in a chariot.
Well,
Achilles was mostly
this-
Like
the-
shredded his
Achilles-
skin off and stuff. It was-
Achilles kind of story was quite interesting. Like his mother dipped him in the lake, which made him the river, which made him invincible. Apart from his ankle, which made
His
him.
heel.
Wait, why was it that his ankle wasn't like?
It's because his
Hercules
mother held him by there.
And why didn't he like put some armor on his ankle then?
Because he was so prideful, and that's why your Achilles heel is the one place that you think, oh yeah, I'm invincible, but your Achilles heel is the one thing that takes you down. He thought he was the best person in the world, and he didn't need armor, regardless of where he was unprotected, and that is why his arrogance struck him down in the end.
Also,
yes.
they all just kind of had sandals in those times.
True.
But like, if my only weakness was my ankle, I'd put on some like
Because see,
metal
the thing
around
is,
it.
he
Or
didn't
my
really
heel.
know his only weakness was his.
Or if he did, he was
his
way
ankle.
too arrogant.
So if he
Yeah.
didn't know that, how do we know that?
Because
we
was
know
written
he
down
got
like
shot
that.
in the arrow in the back
But
of
like,
his foot.
couldn't the same have
Achilles
happened
tendon
if he
is.
got hit in the palm or something, and then it'd be like Achilles' palm?
Yeah, but that's not how
Well,
the story
you see,
goes.
He
wasn't
was
a real
yes, but-
person.
But
invincible.
if that was
He
his
was
only
invincible in
weakness,
his
how do
time.
we know that?
Because he wasn't a real person, and it was written down that that was his only weakness.
I
we have to
I
believe
beg to
what is
differ. I'm
written.
pretty sure
Aaron,
he was
where
a real
was this
person.
written on? Where
It
do
was.
we know about these things?
It comes from poetry.
Poetry.
Homer.
Yes.
Because
Poets
the Odyssey actually starts.
The Odyssey written by
the-
Homer.
Yes,
about Odysseus.
It actually starts with with Odysseus or Ulysses sailing away from Troy and his many years of trying to get back to his homeland in Greek.
It was the 400-year battle in Troy, wasn't it? Or the 100-year?
Several years.
No,
So that's a pretty
years.
wide range.
I think it was the
100,
400-year
100 or
battle of
400, one
Troy.
of those.
It's the 400-year battle of Troy. Sorry.
Well, in any case, it was quite a long struggle, and it only ended
Yeah,
when.
400 years.
Well, that is probably an exaggeration passed through the times. But in any case, it ended when many people know this, when the Greeks decided to pretend to sail away around the coast, while some stayed in a mystery gift to the Trojans, saying, "Well done, you've won, we give up." But as everyone knows today,
What was the gift?
it was a horse.
It was a
A
wooden
massive
horse.
wooden
And you know
horse.
what the significance of the horse was? The horse was the symbol of Poseidon, so that's why they gave it a horse rather than like a bull
I
or
thought a
something.
dolphin was the symbol of Poseidon.
No, the like horse that I don't really know much about it, but it was like
He created
He's also the god of
horse
horses,
waves.
not just the sea.
Oh, that's
It's
interesting.
divided into waves on land, and it was created from the sea foam, apparently, according to Greek mythology.
and that's why they're horses.
That is why they're sorted.
Oh,
But
it's all coming together.
back to the siege of Troy. When the Trojans woke up the next morning,
Their town was pillaged.
unexpectedly, they saw the Greeks had gone away, and they welcomed they didn't welcome, they brought in the sacrifice or the gift that the Greeks had left for them, and they brought it into the city. And then that night, the Greeks, who were famously hiding inside the Trojan horse
Whoa.
belly, opened the gate, stuck out of the horse, and opened the gates
Which way did they get out of the horse? Like
through the belly.
mouth or
Through the belly.
It's believed through the belly, but
I-
it is.
No, wait, the exit of the horse. Where was the exit?
The belly.
The belly.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Anyway, they
Continue.
opened the gates, and by that time, unnoticed by the partying, and everyone thought the war was over. So the Greeks sailed up in their boats because no one was there to man the walls. As I said, they were probably all partying and flat out drunk. So yeah, the Greeks landed, stormed the city, and everyone was put to the sword except what was his name, Aaron? The guy who left for Rome. He was one of the only ones who survived, and apparently he was the son of Aphrodite, the goddess of love.
He was the guy with the arrow who killed Achilles, wasn't it?
That was Paris, I think.
Oh, didn't Paris
Well-
escape though?
Paris is the one who stole Helen from Troy.
Helen of Troy.
Yeah, but
As
didn't
his
he
wife.
escape? The
Yeah.
Troy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Aaron,
Actually,
do you want to? Aaron, do you
It's
want
pretty interesting.
to? Aaron, do
Well,
you want
that brings us into Roman mythology, and
It
Aaron can kind of
Does.
shed a light
Right
on
back
that.
to actually, we're just gonna go and talk about. First of all, we're gonna be talking about the story of Dido and Aeneas, and this starts off first of all with Paris, the Trojan. And so what happened, right, is three of the goddesses, Minerva, Juno, and Venus, or Venus being the Roman for Aphrodite, Minerva, Roman for Athena, and Juno, the Roman for Hera. They were having the argument about who was the most beautiful of the three goddesses. So they went to Paris to settle this argument. And Paris was to pick which one. And they were all offering him different gifts, right? And Venus
Trying to
offered
bribe
him.
him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I do remember
Venus,
this, yes.
Yeah.
From Greek mythology.
yeah, and Venus
It's
offered
quite
him.
interesting the way they overlap, isn't it? the
Mm,
Greek
fine.
mythology and Roman mythology
Many
are quite similar.
cultures have the same myths, which does lead historians to believe that some of these may actually have taken place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Anyway, so Venus offered him the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen.
That's good there.
Yeah. And then Juno was just like really annoyed at this and then didn't like Trojans after that, right? And now this brings us this brings us forward a bit now to after the Trojan War, right? And this guy, Aeneas, he's like the son of Jupiter, is setting out to found Italy because that's what Jupiter wants him to do, right? But Juno both hates Trojans and also hates Jupiter, so she doesn't want this to happen. So what she does, right, is she teams up with Venus, right? And through the help of Venus,
Okay.
makes Aeneas fall in love with Dido, who he met along the way, and Dido is like the queen of Carthage, right? So then they're like in love, and they're just like being in love for a little bit over in Carthage, having a good time. But then like Mercury,
Carthage is near Eastern Europe nowadays, is it?
it's like
North
in
coast of Africa.
Africa, yeah.
Yeah.
So then Mercury, or Hermes in Greek gods, sends a message for Jupiter to Aeneas that he's got to get off his arse and go found Italy already. So then he just kind of gets up and leaves without telling Dido, and then Dido just gets like super depressed, and like all the construction on her city and army just kind of like ceases, and then she stabs herself on top of a giant fire and swears that she's gonna haunt Aeneas for the rest of his life. Pretty interesting stuff.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's
pretty
actually
interesting.
very
I
interesting.
mean, that's like
And
some intense information.
that is. Then kind of moving on to less mainstream mythology, which quite a few people don't know about, is Irish mythology. And Fionn, could you shed some more light on that?
Yeah, okay, so Irish mythology, although it's full of some pretty interesting legends and it, in many ways is similar to Greek and Roman, has kind of like disappeared from the spotlight for a lot of reasons. So obviously the Celts didn't write down as much as the Romans and Greek. They weren't, generally speaking, they weren't as well educated, and they carved most of their kind of scriptures into stone, and that, you know, obviously that was kind of lost over time. And with the arrival of Christianity and Vikings and all this, the legends and tales kind of diffused and kind of mixed with them. So now the information on these legends and stuff is very much diluted. It's not as clear, you know. Different manuscripts and stuff would have different kind of versions of stories, so it's kind of difficult to know what the Celts actually believed. So that's one of the reasons it's not as popular. Yeah, and then one of the similarities between Greek and Roman was Dida, who was supposedly the founding father of Ireland. So he was essentially the Irish version of Zeus, and he stole the goddess Danu, and his family became the Tuatha De Danu, which were the people of Danu. So they were kind of the first inhabitants of the country.
Fionn,
Yeah.
what is the Danu?
So Danu was the woman whom he stole from another god. So
Okay.
yeah, so she wasn't. It's kind of debated whether she was like kind of willing and whether she kind of fled with Danu from the other god, or whether she was stolen. And basically they had, you know, lots and lots of children, and they became the Tuatha De Danu, which aren't really well known. You know, their names have kind of disappeared over time. And yeah, and basically Dida, who is the one Donny stole, is quite interesting. He had a harp which he could realign the weather and seasons with it by just plucking the strings of his harp. And from this massive cauldron that he carried over his shoulder, he could feed all of the inhabitants of Ireland. And then with a club, he could resurrect people and obviously end their life. So that's
John, could that be where the symbol of a harp in Ireland come from?
Yeah, that was why a harp is found in lots of the old family crests. But the kind of main reason that the harp became the symbol of Ireland was because it was owned by Brian Boru. He was a very famous harp player. Yeah, because he was supposedly the last High King of Ireland. And then the funny thing is, his son gave the harp to the Pope, but then the Pope gave the harp to King Henry VIII way later in time, and obviously the harp, if that's true, the harp was destroyed. But then some people claim that the real harp of Brian Boru is actually in Trinity College, which it's on display, but that's probably not the real one.
And Fionn, doesn't mythology, especially Irish mythology, factor into Irish life today, such as in the names of many political parties, the Fianna Fáil?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of derived from the Fianna, which were this kind of warrior tribe in ancient Ireland, and they were kind of they were led for a time by Fionn McCool, and basically he was supposedly one of the greatest Irish warriors ever, apart from Cuchulainn, who was the best of all, supposedly.
Just kind of on Jamie's point there about how Irish mythology has influenced kind of our day-to-day lives in Ireland. But if you kind of look at it, that it's not just Irish mythology, that both Greek and Romans still they've kind of shaped the society that we know today, especially in Greece and Rome, but even kind of within the wider scope of Europe, especially after when the Romans took over quite a bit of Europe. They kind of
and that's why a lot of
messages.
Celtic mythology is lost, because they pretty much exterminated the Celts in mainland Europe, and that's why
exactly.
Ireland is one of those countries that kind of maintains a lot of their Celtic heritage compared to the others, because the Romans never fully established themselves in Ireland because it was so far off the mainland.
And can I jump in there, just on a wider scope around the world? Many mythologies have similar myths, as I said earlier, but one particular is the flood myth, which nearly every culture around the world has one of those. There's Roman, Greek, Babylonian, South American, African, Celtic, and these all have very similar. In fact, not to mention, even Christianity has it quite a big with Noah and his ark. And there's obviously historians see there that such many unconnected cultures having practically similar stories about a god warning one or two particular people, saying there's a flood coming and prepare yourself. Historians find it very interesting that this has expanded all through the world in unconnected cultures, which leads many people to believe that long ago there's quite possibly been a massive flood, perhaps due to the ice ages ending, maybe a small localized ice age in many areas of the world. I find that very interesting, don't you guys?
Yeah,
certainly.
Absolutely.
It's especially really prevalent in Celtic mythology, because in Celtic mythology, basically, heaven and earth were supposedly great giants, and their children were squished between them, and their children were very happy, unhappy, and became titans, and they cut heaven into loads of pieces, and the blood spilt across the earth and created a great flood.
And that's funny, because that is practically the same myth in Greek and Roman, with the Titans, led by Cronus, uses a scythe to practically kill his father and spatter the blood all over the world and the universe. In fact, some of those blood sprouted, obviously not that true, but created life throughout the world in many cases.
Yeah.
Which shows.
It's funny how they're so similar across the world.
I think
go on.
It's sort of the human belief that it must be the human belief that these mythologies are so similar. Obviously, the flood must be because there was some sort of flood, but even the way that quite a lot of them tie in, it's quite influenced by what humans sort of want to believe in a sort of aspect.
Humans across the world have always kind of hoped for some sort of afterlife, and that's kind of been seen in a lot of different mythologies and religions. Because people don't want to believe that when you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
A pretty simple explanation to the flood myth, even though I've brought it in here, is that practically all cultures from time to time experience floods, and this could just be noted down by his mythology tellers throughout the world, and just so happens that over the millennia they have kind of formed as people have met each other and go, oh, you had a flood, I also had a flood, let's write something about that. I'm sure that's a pretty easy explanation to see how these kind of things happen. And I'm sure there's explanations for, you suppose you could think of an explanation for practically anything, really, if you'd think about it.
Exactly, yeah. Well, that was really interesting from everyone there. That kind of signifies the end of our podcast today. We'll be back tomorrow with something on electric cars, so please tune in for that. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having us, Fraser.
Thanks, guys.
That's a bye from me. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.